Welcome to Love and Trauma, the real deal. I'm Danielle Sebastian, best-selling author, coach, and yes, I've been through the marriage trenches myself. This show is all about how to actually deal with trauma in relationships and make it work without losing your mind. If you're ready for honest talk, no fluff, and tools that cut through the noise, tune in because let's face it, love can be a bit of a mess, but it's a mess worth figuring out. This is Love and Trauma, the real deal.
Love is messy. Healing is hard. But what if it's exactly what you need to find the partnership you've been longing for? Hey, everyone, and welcome back to Love and Trauma, the real deal. A few months back, I did an interview with Amy Sanders. And if you were able to watch that, you know that she didn't hold anything back. She shared so openly about growing up with childhood trauma, surviving a painful first marriage, and the work she did to truly heal before meeting Chris. And today I am so excited because we get to hear the other side of that love story. You all know I believe in telling the whole truth here. Because let's be real, love is not simple or neat. It's messy, and it rarely goes in a straight line. But when both people are willing to do the work, that's where real connection happens. So Chris Sanders is joining me today. He's Amy's husband, of course, but he's also a tech entrepreneur, an endurance athlete, a devoted father of four, and an outdoorsman who's always up for the next big adventure with a Dr. Pepper in hand. He's the kind of person who pushes limits in every area of his life, from mountain trails to how he shows up for his family. But behind all of that is a very human, very real story about hitting rock bottom in a toxic marriage, navigating the heartbreak of divorce and co-parenting, and doing the hard, slow work of figuring out who he was before he could even think about showing up in a healthy, connected relationship. We're going to be talking about guilt, healing, therapy, the tough conversations, and how after years of work, he found the kind of partnership that truly feels like home. So I really hope you'll stick around to the end, because if you've ever wondered if it's too late to change the patterns, choose yourself, and build the love you actually deserve, this one's for you. So let's dive in. So let's go back. Who was Chris before you met Amy? What did life look for you before then?
Oh, before I met Amy, I was probably a little bit of a hot mess. I had a lot of work that I had to do on myself to get to a place where I was actually ready to meet Amy. It was not an easy process or fast either. It took me years to get to a place where I was really ready to be in a committed, healthy relationship, and a lot of pain, a lot of soul searching, a lot of work on myself to kind of get to where I was finally ready, and it was super interesting. Once I did get to that place, just how quickly like life kind of fell into place.
And Amy wrote about in her chapter and in her interview that she also had some past traumas that she also was working on as well. So, and some of her trauma was from childhood and also from a first marriage. Can you speak to what some of the trauma was that you were dealing with at the time?
Um, yeah, I don't think mine was as much from childhood trauma and growing up. Like I grew up in a fairly, I would say, healthy environment. It was mostly from my first marriage. So having to basically rediscover myself, who I was. I really had gotten to a place where there wasn't much Chris left. Um, I was uh, completely exhausted from giving 110% as a provider and as a husband and as a father, and there wasn't much, if any, time spent on myself to be healthy, and the relationship itself was as I look back, was very toxic to me, and it took me almost 5 years to get to a place where I felt like I was Chris again.
How did you know it was time to walk away? And not just for survival, but for your own healing and growth.
Um, it was something that I would say for probably the last, it sounds like such a long time, but the last 4 years of my marriage, I was just completely exhausted, and felt like I had given everything I could with little to nothing in return. And for me, the final kind of straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, I from the time that we had our first kid until I guess I had my heart broken. We had actually never gone overnight like out of town together. So there was just never any time for me and her to connect and have a relationship that way. And it was something that, I understand about myself now is like something I need. I need the connection. Like, and we all need that connection. And I was not getting that. But obviously longing for that in my life. And so I we had a trip planned where we were going down to visit my parents, and my siblings and stuff are down there. And I thought, this is like a perfect opportunity for us to at least have kind of a weekend or even just a night that we can get away and spend time together. And I knew every argument that would be used against leaving, and it would be the kids scheduling and money and like who was going to be where and when and all of the things. And so I spent weeks planning kind of a getaway where every kid was, I had a plan and I had money and I had already had the conversations with siblings and my parents of who was watching the kids when. I mean, all of those things were thoroughly analyzed and planned for. The money set aside. I had a reservation at a bed and breakfast. Had couples massage planned, and I even wrote like this poem that I had all printed up and ready so that when she woke up on Saturday morning, it's like the first thing she would see. And then the plan was to basically have breakfast and leave, and stay until kind of a Sunday afternoon. Um, so I got up Saturday morning, I had the note out and ready for her when she woke up. She liked to sleep in, and I just kind of hung around the bedroom waiting. And she finally got up and came out with the note in her hand, and I was like, "So, what do you think? Can we do this? Are we gonna go?" And she declined. She told me that it just wasn't right, and she didn't want to go. And I was crushed.
Thank you for sharing.
Um, and that was the moment I knew that it was done. Like that I had nothing left to give. I had tried everything. I just didn't know what else to do. So I put on my running shoes, and I ran farther than I probably ever had in my life up to that point, until I was just physically exhausted, and cried most of the run. Just I was just crushed. And that's when I knew that it was done. It was over.
And you have 4 kids.
Yeah, four
Is
kids.
that right?
Yeah.
Oh, so leaving a marriage, especially when kids are involved, did it feel, I mean, it can kind of feel like a failure.
Oh, for sure.
What was there a moment that you were able to shift from guilt to charity in that process?
Um, oh, that's a great question. I don't know that any of it has ever changed my love for my kids and how I feel about them. I mean, I was super active in their lives before we got divorced. I mean, I would help get the kids off to school in the morning, and then I'd go into work. I'd get back, and it was kind of like, "Here's the kids. I've been with them all day. It's your turn." And a lot of times would make dinner, get the homework done, run them to all the activities, and then get them ready for bed at night and read them bedtime stories, get them all tucked in. And so, I was super active, very much like a massive part of their lives. And so for me, there wasn't as much guilt. I still did everything I could to show up as a dad for them as much as I was allowed. And that was, for me, the hard part was uh, the restrictions that were put in place that actually kept me from the kids. And that, even to this day, just eats me alive. It was, yeah, by far the most difficult part was not being able to spend the time with my kids that I really wanted to.
Were there, if there's, we have lots of viewers who may be in difficult, relationships. What, if you could give them any advice on, any red flags or things that, maybe you would have like to have paid attention to sooner? Would you have any advice on that?
Definitely. And it's easy to look back at, how I handled some of these situations. And honestly, it was, I did the best I could at the time. I hadn't
Mm-hmm.
been through, a divorce. I didn't know what, um, some of the gotchas were with navigating custody and kids and all of those things. And um, I thought, taking the high road and staying, keeping kids out of conversations and out of the middle of things, and even, family and friends as well, like was the right thing to do. And to not get into kind of, so to speak, get into the mud. And but looking back, um, I think that was a mistake because there, with every story, there's two sides, and if you're silent and not actively engaging in some of those conversations, then the void gets filled. And if there's only one side of the story that gets told, then that essentially becomes the truth, and that's not necessarily the case. And so that was a big, I think, mistake that I made was not being more active in having the conversations, even about the marriage. Like my kids still to this day have no idea what married life was like for me with her. Like no clue. Like I have never ever talked to them about that. And the same goes for her family and even unfortunately my family, where she stayed very active and in touch even with my my siblings to where, I have never talked to my siblings even about what my marriage was like. And so they lean her direction now. She has influenced their attitudes towards me because I didn't step in and have those conversations. And it's hard to know like scope of who she was talking to and what she was saying. I mean, I know there was just crazy stuff that she was throwing around for years and probably still does. That it would have been exhausting to try and counteract that, but I think sometimes those little nuggets of truth, carry a lot of weight and could have changed some of the situations I'm in today. But I think the
So
other,
do you feel, just a little bit more on that, do you feel like you wish you would have reached out more to
the important, I realize, friends and, all that kind of stuff, but the important people like your family and your kids, to tell them a little bit more about your story. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I should
Yeah.
have. Yeah. And I think part of what I struggled with, I think it was two things was, one was just thinking I was taking the high road.
Mhm.
But the other thing is I was hurting myself. I
Yeah.
was struggling. And so, to feel like I was in a place to be really active, having those conversations, like I don't think I was in a place that I could have really done that well. So, and then when you couple that with just the challenges of how a lot of our laws are set up with, and I don't know what it's like in other states, but Utah is very favored towards the women and to moms, and so the custody times and all of those things like were heavily against me, and those were some pretty steep uphill, challenges that like I wasn't prepared to navigate. I didn't have money at all. Like there was no money. Um, I didn't have any expertise. I didn't have anyone I could turn to. Like it was a pretty lonely, difficult journey.
It's interesting because I did interview someone a few months back who he now helps men, especially, protect themselves from, essentially when they're getting a divorce, um,
Uh-huh.
because of what you just said, that for males in particular, the laws, can lean one way, but it's just really important for you to know what your what steps you need to take, what things you need to document, what papers you need to file, right, in order to protect yourself as well as your ability to have kids, the kids access. So that's
Yeah,
really interesting because that I think that's different for the women partners that I've talked to, a difference there.
yeah. And all of that's going, in the backdrop of trying to recover, individually,
Right.
and trying to show up in a healthy way for yourself, and it's a lot. It can be very overwhelming.
So tell me, after, you know, I don't know if the divorce ever ends, but after you had made the decision anyway, and you went through forward with divorce, how did you begin your healing process from that?
Uh, so I went to therapy.
You did?
Yes.
Okay.
So I knew that I needed help. So I know a lot of times there's kind of a stigma around therapy, but I love therapy now. I really enjoy going to it. There's still times that Amy and I go to therapy together. Sometimes we go separate, because there's a lot of things in life that are just hard to navigate sometimes. A lot of things that are hard to understand, but I started at therapy, and you're gonna laugh at this, but my one of the very first assignments I got from my therapist, and it was so hard. It was so hard.
What?
You're gonna laugh about this, but
Okay.
I had to put, he called it a passion list. I had to put a
Oh,
passion list together.
oh,
And it was things that I would enjoy doing by myself. It couldn't be with a group of people. And it couldn't be like mindless activities. So I couldn't go, get on Instagram or Facebook or something. Like it had to be active, alone things that I would enjoy doing, that I might be passionate about. And then I had to pick one thing from that list every day and do it.
every day.
Every day I had to do one thing off of my passion list, and spend at least 15 to 20 minutes doing it. And oh my gosh, that was so hard.
What were some of the things you picked? I want to know.
Um, so running was one of them.
Okay.
Shooting my bow was one of them. So I'm an
Okay.
avid bow hunter.
That's fun.
Reading. So like it was just, I mean,
Okay.
they're little
Yeah.
things. They're not like, it's not like I have to go climb Mount Everest as my passion or something. Like they were small, simple things. But
Chris, I get it. When you're in survival mode, those are the things that go out the window and you forget who you are.
yeah. And so that was, like I said, it was so hard for me to feel okay, even though like at this point I was living by myself and I had, I couldn't see my kids. I was not allowed to see my kids basically one entire weekend, and then I would
Oh,
get to see them for a couple hours on a Wednesday evening. And so I had all of this time, and it was like, I still was like, is it okay for me to go spend
have
15-20 minutes like for myself?
and have fun.
Like, and I felt guilty. Like there was guilt, when I started doing those passion list items. It took me months to get comfortable to where I was like, okay, like it's okay for me to spend time for myself. It's okay for me to engage in these types of activities, and on the other side of those, to actually not get beaten up for doing something. There was no
Yeah, it sounds
guilt
like that
and,
was kind
and
of how the marriage
shame.
was,
Yeah, that
right?
came after. Yeah.
That it was all do all the things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it was not safe and it was not okay for me to have anything for myself. And so it for
That's
months,
huge though. That's
I
so
know.
huge. So you stuck with it.
So I did stick with it. And now
Good.
I still, those are things that I still do today. It's part of what makes me healthy. And I'm fortunate that Amy is also very passionate and has her own kind of passion list, and those are things that we just love and respect about each other. Where she knows, there's times that I need my time, and I will go do my little passions and come back a better man. And she has hers too, and so that's great. Like it's just part of our life now.
Okay, so you did started this healing and then you met Amy.
Yeah, but I'm before you get to that part, I'm gonna
Okay, what
just
else?
Banging your head against the wall trying to navigate the complexities of a relationship impacted by childhood trauma, it doesn't have to be this daunting. When you're married to a partner with unresolved childhood trauma, it can feel like you're walking on eggshells, never quite knowing what will set them off. No matter what you try, it feels like there's always something triggering another emotional response that seems completely out of context. And the harder you try to fix it, the more discouraged you feel. So, what's the issue here? Navigating marriage with a trauma survivor is different. The love languages don't work. Date nights don't work. Self-help books don't help. But here's the good news. I've created something that does work. Something built from years of hard-earned lessons and real-life experience. Ready to take the first step toward real change? Let's talk. I'm offering a free one-on-one call where we'll dive into what's going on in your relationship and figure out a way forward together. This isn't just another quick chat. It's a chance to finally be heard, to share what you're going through with someone who truly gets it. No judgment, just real support. So if you're ready to start making sense of it all and find a little more peace in your marriage, book your free call now. Your happiness, your peace, and your relationship are worth it. Let's do it together.
Took me, it was almost 5 years.
Okay.
Um, I started feeling more and more like myself as I started doing my passions. But there was a lot of almost discovery of who I was as, at that point, almost, a mid 30-year-old man. I'm like, I'm not the 21, 22-year-old that I went into my first marriage as. And so I had grown and developed. And so that process, I mean, it took me almost 5 years to where I felt like I was in a pretty good, stable, back to myself place. And, I dated a bit. And the thing I think was really helpful for me, because I know a lot of people struggle like knowing like when are they actually ready for maybe their next relationship? When are they ready to maybe get into a marriage? And for me, I dated a bit, and it was like sometimes things were okay, sometimes not. Like, relationships are messy when when there's kids and exes, and like we
Yeah.
all bring all of this, garbage with us into our new relationships. But I I actually put a list together of like what my dream partner would look like. And I realized for me to like find a person like that, I had to be in that place myself. So it almost was here's the bar that I'm setting for myself, and I work towards that. And as soon as I got to that place, Amy showed up like 3 weeks later.
Really?
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Well, it's just so important because I think so many people would don't do the work in between and then either change themselves, right? Never really identify their passions and what they want in the next marriage, which then puts them in the back to the very same pattern
Yeah,
that they were in before without doing that
yeah.
work.
I mean, I hear, people like, oh, I've been divorced for 2 months. I'm ready. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Oh,
No way that you're ready, right? Even a
hate
year,
to
it's
put a
like,
time limit on it, but that's too soon, right? Like,
it is.
oh,
So I ended up I shared that list with Amy, and it was amazing that she checked pretty much every single box. Like she was my ideal, like perfect partner match. And she's amazing. She is amazing. And it was, the second time around, you have a lot better idea of what marriage actually is and what it takes to
yeah.
make it work. And so, um, going into the relationship, eyes wide open. Um, and the thing about my relationship with her is it just worked. Like there wasn't a ton of friction. There wasn't, I mean, we dealt with hard things. So I don't want to give the impression that it's been easy, but everything just worked. Like we were fully aligned on parenting styles and on our passions and being super active and like uh there's just so many things about her that just totally harmonize with who I am as a person too. And so it's like we've kind of got that core alignment of who are and what our souls are, that the hard that we have ended up having to deal with is much easier. I shouldn't say easier, but it's more manageable because we're so well aligned as beings, like who we are.
And Amy did the work too between her first marriage,
Yeah.
right? And it's just so I love that part about your story, because the past comes up, right? If we don't address it. Were there moments where your past tried to sabotage things?
Oh, there still is.
Of
There still
course.
is. I mean, it's been, years and years and years. And it's some of it is from first marriage, some of it is um, even before then. Like I did grow up in a healthy, home, but as I've gone through continued growth and introspection. Like I've learned more things about myself and kind of my inner child that I've continued evolving, post marriage with Amy, even to understand myself at a much deeper level. And so I mean, we all have trauma. So
Yep.
it's, just
It
learning
doesn't
how,
have to be big T, as some of my
sometimes
interviews say. It's not just big T that we need to
yeah,
deal with, right?
yeah. So, but I feel like now I have all of the tools at my disposal when I might personally have things that come up with, with myself, or when her and I are having to deal with hard things. And I feel much better equipped now to handle what life throws at me than I was even in my first marriage, and even earlier in my current marriage.
Can you give me an example or two of things that kind of kept coming up?
Um, I think for me personally, and some of this is just my nature, and it showed up, I think, heavily in my first marriage, especially with uh, the way that relationship was, is I will always give everything of myself until like I'm always my last priority. And so it's my nature is to take care of everyone else before myself. And that can put me in a position where like I'm not healthy because nobody's taking care of Chris. Um, and so
Do
part
you
of
finally just kind of explode a
yeah,
little bit?
it just builds and builds until like little Chris needs some attention. Um, and so I actually, if you could see right behind you, right above my camera, is a picture of little Chris.
Mm.
Um, so I've learned that like I have to check in on that little guy on a regular basis, and make sure he's doing all right. Make sure he knows that uh, there is somebody here that's going to take care of him and love him, and it's me. It's the adult version of me. But I found that having essentially that kind of circle of adult me checking in on little Chris, it keeps me very well centered in life and balanced. And there's times like I'll tell Amy like, hey, um, I need some time for myself, and she understands, and it's like I can go do something on my passion list and get re-energized and refocused and recentered, and come back a better man.
I love the passion list. I love it. Uh, what was I going to say? Oh, that is a coping mechanism. I think that is keep going, right? Do all the things in order for you to, especially in your first marriage, to avoid all the things that were wrong.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely.
So I just want to put that connection together that often it's these coping mechanisms that we develop that end up going too far and end up not working. And so they can easily, they can be tweaked and worked on. But I see that quite a bit as a coping mechanism that I just want people to realize that a lot of the clients that I work with, their husbands retire and they use work and working at workaholics ish,
Yeah.
as a coping mechanism to not deal with the pain inside. And then it comes out later in life. So for anybody who's out there that may be using that as a coping mechanism, I just want to put a plug that, deal with that sooner than later. But was there another example of something that kept coming up?
Um, I think something, and I still struggle with this. But and I actually, Amy and I talk about this because we see similar behavior in my kids where when there are really painful things that happen, like for whatever reason, I completely forget what happened. It's like I don't know. I can't explain why. I don't know. Like I don't even recognize that it happens, but there's been some traumatic things that have happened with my family and with my kids. And like within a week or two, Amy will ask me about it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, do you remember 2 weeks ago that this and this and this? And I'm like, oh, kind of like vaguely. And so I think that's still something that I probably conditioned myself in my first marriage to just because of so much trauma and so much pain to forget those things that happened. And so I probably should do a better job at journaling just to keep a record of those things that I could go back and refer to. But that's something that still happens, and we see it in my kids too. Like I recently went to dinner with my son, and we were talking about therapy, and I shared a scenario with him where he and I spent it was like 3 or 4 weekends in a row together up in the mountains, and we had like a great time. I felt really close and connected with him, and he looked at me. He's like, Dad, he's like, I don't remember any of that. I'm like,
Mm.
that's crazy. Like, those were even good times. And he, like, my kids don't remember much of, if any, of their childhood. So that's something I don't know how much of that's biological or how much of it is just a learned behavior that uh, I still struggle with, and my kids do as well.
That is real. That is real. And I think that a lot of times that I do think that is a trauma response. Um, and it's interesting. I would like to talk how you and Amy deal with that because to a partner who doesn't get it, it feels gaslighting almost. But
Um,
I do think it's a trauma response. So I'm glad you brought that up because I had to learn that my husband wasn't gaslighting me. It truly was a trauma response for things that were uncomfortable that he trained himself to do. So how have you and Amy kind of been able to work through that?
Um, it's mostly Amy will remind me, like, do you not remember this? And so she, I swear she remembers everything, everything, like every small little detail. And so there's a lot of times like I've learned that there's times I need to, I need to really trust her that things happen the way they happened and that they impacted us the way they impacted us because by not remembering those things, that also means that I tend to minimize and probably expose myself to more trauma and more pain, in the future because I'm like, oh, I'm okay with so and so. And then Amy like, wait, do you remember last time we interacted with that person? Like how hurtful that was for you? And it's like, oh, wait a minute. Like, oh, like you're right. That was it was painful. And it's probably not
Mm.
a good idea. And so, I have to trust her that, you know, she's got my back. She's watching out for me, and she does remember those things. And I have to just realize that that's like a weakness that I have now, and something that I have work to do.
Yeah. I don't think it's a weakness. I really do think it's a
Well, it
coping
feels like a
mechanism.
weakness.
Yeah, but I mean, I just want to, relieve that. There is a reason behind it, um, which should help. And I'm just curious, did you used to get kind of defensive when she
Oh,
say those things?
um, yeah, and
Like
I
remind
still
you?
do. There's times I
Yeah.
still will get defensive and want to isolate. And so part of that is just Amy and I learning how to communicate. And there's things that I've asked her like, hey, when something like this is coming, like just tell me these key words so that I know like where you're coming from, so I don't feel attacked, but I can be very open to your feedback and what you're going to tell me. And so we've
Yeah.
had to, after times that I have felt defensive, I've had to, analyze after the fact, like, okay, why was I defensive? Was it the way she said things, or was it how I was interpreting? And, so understanding about myself, like why I would show up defensively, uh, like that's some of the therapy work that I've had to do, recently, is just getting to a better place with who I'm at and how she's showing up in our relationship. And, she definitely has our best interest at heart. And so I've had to basically, I just had to learn, like, when I get flooded with emotion, like I will show up defensive, or I will completely withdraw and not respond. And so I've learned that about myself. So now if I get hit with a ton of emotion, or, want to like be defensive, I'll take that, just pause. And there's times I'll even tell Amy, like, hey, you just told me a whole bunch. Like, I'm flooded emotionally right now. Like, I just need a few minutes to just basically take a step back, let the emotions go through, like, and then I can show up how you need me to and how I want to, instead of just knee jerk, like defensive, or totally withdraw. And so, that's hard work. It's hard,
Hard work.
um, to do those things. And for me, like, the healthiest part of all of this now is like I do emote. I am hyper aware now of the emotions that I have, and give them space, and get super curious about, okay, why am I feeling this emotion and this emotion and this emotion, and what triggered those, and what do they mean? And stepping back and like almost looking at myself from a third party perspective, and being able to understand why I show up the way I do sometimes, and why I respond the way I do. And it's been really helpful for me um, to do that, because then I realize, like, hey, these emotions will pass, and a lot of times somebody might have said something and that wasn't their intent, and my initial emotional response wasn't okay, and it's not how I wanted to show up, and it's not who I am. But because I'm processing those now, and like taking that step back and giving myself a little bit of space, like, I can show up much better in all of my relationships.
And Amy is able to adjust, how she responds to. I heard you say, and you know what, when you guys make mistakes, or don't do it perfectly, you give each other grace.
Yeah. I mean, just it was a week or two ago. uh, she came to me emotional about something that happened with one of the kids, and I didn't take the time and the space to check my emotions, and I did not show up the way that I wanted to, and which then frustrated me, which is now another emotion in the equation, that tends to make me defensive if I get frustrated. Um, but I took a little bit of time, went out and did some work in the yard, and came back in. I was like, hey, Amy, I did not show up for you the way that I wanted to, and I'm sorry.
And she's there for you. It's okay.
Yeah. And she forgave me, but she also was very open and said that, that was hard for me. That really hurt me. Like, I needed you as a partner, and as a best friend, and I didn't get that from you, and I really needed that. And so we can have like those very candid um, moments, and talk about those things, and it's super healthy for us.
That's what we all need. It's never, and then the marriage is never the end of working on things. It just
No,
isn't.
it's not.
It just isn't. I mean, wait till, you have the teenager, but I'm like, whoa, we got the teenager, and it brought up all
Oh my
again,
gosh, yeah.
right? I
We
mean,
totally,
every
yeah.
stage, it's like, oh, new set of emotions we need to work on. That is, thank you for sharing that. because that's what I want for people. I really do. It's not easy to get there, but just tell me what that feels like for you when you know you can do those things. Was it all worth it?
No, yeah, for sure, it's worth it. It is hard work. Marriage is never easy, and then especially if you've been through the trauma of a first marriage and or multiple marriages and all of the things, like it is really, really hard work without all of that. And then when you throw that in with, exes that can be very challenging and kids that don't grow up in ideal situations and, the different uh, directions they end up pulling you as well. Like there's, the deck is definitely stacked against you. But when you can find that person it's been both her and I, spending a significant amount of time working on ourselves and understanding like that we both have to show up as our best version and that we're not going to be perfect and having that grace to forgive each other and continue learning and growing together. Like it's sweet, it just the space that we're in right now is just, I just love her to pieces. Like she's my best friend. I know I can talk to her about all of the things and she's got my back completely and I've got hers completely. Like she's a perfect partner for me.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for sharing today.
You bet.
I know your story, both Amy and your story, will give people hope. I mean, it's never too late to do these things and get the relationship that you deserve. So thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like the time is right now to choose yourself and to show up for yourself.
Thank you.
Oh, Chris, thank you so much for being here and being so open with us today. Seriously, that was so real. And I know so many people needed to hear that. All right, friends, before we wrap up, let's talk the real deal, where I give my biggest takeaways from this conversation, which was really hard this time because there was so much packed in there. But here are the three that I really want you to take home. Number one, healing doesn't happen overnight. I loved how Chris stopped me in that interview and just said, wait. I need you to know that after my first divorce, it took a while, years, 5 years for me to do the work, to put in the work, doing therapy, rediscovering who he was, and getting really clear on the partner that he wanted to be first and then the partner that he was really looking for. And it wasn't quick or easy, but it was definitely necessary. And the number two thing I want everyone to take home from this episode today is that life needs to feel joyful, even in the healing. I loved how Chris's first homework when he started the healing process was a passion list. I mean, are you kidding me? I just love that. And how he was so committed to doing something for himself every day, even though it was hard. And whether you're a trauma survivor, totally a driven person, or the partner of someone doing trauma healing, you might feel guilty about having fun and taking time for yourself. But you have to make space for joy and lightness because you can't show up as the person you want to be in your relationship if you're not allowing yourself to actually live and enjoy your life. And number three, this is a consistent message throughout all of the interviews I've done, is that your voice matters even when it's hard. Chris talked about staying quiet and realizing too late that by not speaking up, he left space for others to tell his story. And it's such a powerful reminder to speak your truth, even when it feels messy or uncomfortable. And this is what I want you to hear today. Love isn't about finding someone to complete you. It's about doing the work to be whole yourself so you can meet someone else doing the same. And that is real partnership. You guys, if this spoke to you, please share it with someone who needs it. And stick around because we're not done having real, honest conversations. This is Love and Trauma, the real deal, and we'll see you next time.
All right, that's a wrap for today on Love and Trauma, the real deal. Big thanks to my guests for sharing their insights. Couldn't have done it without you. Now, for those of you looking to take this journey further, I've got something special. Head to my website to grab Real Tactics, Real Healing, a survivor's playbook for navigating a relationship with a trauma survivor. It's packed with everything you need to know, do, and say to navigate the emotional minefield, find your balance, and regain your self-worth and happiness.